The story we just heard of the three wise men brings to mind for me a more recent Epiphany story. Perhaps you remember this as well. On a cold January morning, much like today, a man sat at a metro station in Washington, D.C. and began to play the violin. He played 6 Bach pieces for about 45 minutes. Since it was rush hour, it was calculated that thousands of people went through the station, most of them, of course, on their way to work. After the first 3 minutes, a middle-aged man noticed the musician playing. He slowed his pace, stopped for a few seconds, and then hurried on to meet his schedule. A minute later, the violinist received his first tip, $1. A woman threw the money in the till and without stopping, continued to walk. A few minutes later, someone leaned against the wall to listen, looked at his watch, and started to walk again, clearly late for work. The one who paid the most attention was a 3-year-old boy. His mother, harried, tagged him along, but the child stopped to look at that violinist. Finally, the mother pushed hard, and the child continued to walk, turning his head back the whole time. This action was repeated by several other children. All the parents, without exception, forced them to move along. In the 45 minutes the musician played, only 6 people stopped and stayed for a while. 20 gave him money and continued to walk their normal pace. He collected $32. When he finished playing and silence took over, no one even noticed it. No one applauded, nor was there any recognition. The violinist was Joshua Bell, one of the finest musicians in the world. He played one of the most intricate pieces ever written on a violin worth about $3.5 million. 2 days before playing in that subway, he sold out at a theater in Boston where the seats averaged $100. His playing incognito in the metro station was organized by the Washington Post as part of a social experiment about perception, taste, and priorities of people. They were hoping to shed light on a few things, you see, in a commonplace environment, at an inappropriate hour. Do we perceive beauty and stop to appreciate it? Do we recognize talent in an unexpected context? The study led some to ponder, if we do not have a moment to stop and listen to one of the best musicians in the world, playing the best music ever written, how many other things are we missing? The most faithful of the Jewish people, the scholars of the Torah and the leaders of the synagogues, did not recognize their own Messiah in their very midst because he was born a baby into poverty. King Herod, paranoid, despicable, wicked beyond belief, had no idea that a new king, more powerful than he could ever hope to be, was nestled in his mother's arms in a place not too far from where Herod himself lay down to sleep every night. It was the Magi, foreigners and scholars of astronomy, whose life's work was given over to the study of charts and the movement of the stars in the heavens, who gazed up at the same night sky as all those other people and saw the very same stars, but they saw them in a very different way. And trusting in their own knowledge, they made what would end up to be a life-changing decision to leave the safety of all that was comfortable, risk their reputations and their fortunes, and make their way towards this new king they believed the star would lead them to. And when they arrived at their destination, of course, what they expected to see, royalty in a palace, and what they eventually discovered A baby born in an out-of-the-way place couldn't have been more different. Undeterred and having found themselves in the very presence of God, they knelt down before this light of pure love and presented gifts befitting of the king they knew this child was. Unlike the others, you see, the Magi had the wisdom in that moment to realize that this was precisely what they had spent their whole lives preparing to discover. It wasn't at all what they had envisioned, yet it was far greater than they could have imagined. And this is a really important piece to this story, my friends, we are told they went home by another way. Another way geographically, of course, because of the warning they received in the dream. But they also went home another way because they had been forever changed by their encounter with the living God. For better or for worse, their lives would never be the same. They could not be who they were before they made that journey. Today we celebrate the Feast of the Epiphany, the revelation that as we travel the days and the weeks and the months ahead of us, we now know that God is already there, waiting for us, hoping that we too will see beneath the unusual places and interesting disguises that might allow us to hurry past and take no notice of God in our midst at all. But be aware, friends, slowing down to take a good look at just what is in front of us can be very risky, life-changing, in fact. For once we encounter the living God, we will never be the same. And like those wise men so long ago, we will return home to ourselves by another way. A way that is uncomfortable and unfamiliar, no longer clearly marked by a star in the heavens, but always illumined by the light we now carry within, the light that spills out along our path, so others may also see it and follow. Amen.